Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the fourth video in our Japan trip planning series. Every week in December I'm going to be uploading a video which will hopefully help you plan your perfect Japan trip, and we're actually on to our fourth video, which is currently the last one that I have planned. There may be bonus videos, but currently this is the last one that I have planned, and today we're going to be talking all about hotels. So let's go. One of the best ways to get started with where you're going to be staying when you go to Japan is to understand the different types of accommodation which are there. I'm going to go through them super quickly, but I'm going to leave a link to a vlog below which comes from the channel Life Where I'm From, where he goes into much greater detail into what the different types of accommodation in Japan are like. As a quick overview, let's go through sort of the most common ones that you're likely to see. First is Western hotels. So Western hotels are very similar or run by the same chains that you might see in Europe and America, things like Hilton, Marriott, that kind of thing. And they tend to be very, very large rooms, usually with 2 double beds. Very classic kind of US style hotel. The only problem I find with them is that they only appear in very large cities, and also they're incredibly expensive, So be a little careful if you book one of those. My actual favorite type of hotel is the next one that I'm going to describe, and that is a business hotel. A business hotel is a bit like a Western hotel. It won't have 2 double beds in the room, or it seems extremely rare that it would have that. It usually has just 1 double bed in a room or 2 single beds, and it's a very, very clean and convenient hotel and room, and it usually comes at a very, very reasonable price, and that's the reason why I love it. The price is great, the room is clean, it's usually very well located, and it has everything that I need. And some of them, including my favorite chain, which I'll be talking about a little bit later, which is DORMY Inn, usually have a bathhouse somewhere on site, so that's kind of an added benefit that comes along with some business hotels, not all of them, but business hotels tend to be my favorite. You then have the extremely beautiful and usually a little pricey Ryokan. Ryokan is a Japanese style inn, and it's a little bit more of an experience rather than it is sort of just a place to stay. You usually turn up at a Ryokan and enjoy the Ryokan buildings and the surrounding area because they're usually based in very, very beautiful places. You then have dinner in your room. Often they will serve you dinner in your room. Some high-end Ryokan may have buffet, but it's typical that they will serve dinner in your room. You go and have a bath. Most Ryokans will have onsens, a bathhouse on site, and then go to bed, and in the morning you'll usually enjoy a buffet style breakfast which they cook for you as well. It's an unbelievable experience, but just like Life Where I'm From said, this is not a jumping off point for adventures. They are a destination, so it's a place that you go to experience a Ryokan. You're not kind of staying there as a place where you can, you know, just dump your stuff and go out and experience lots of things during the day. It's an experience, it's a destination. I love Ryokan. The only disadvantages I find with them is that they can be a little bit expensive, but food is included in the price, and they often, although this is getting better, but they often are quite restrictive on the food that they will serve to you. So if you have any allergies or maybe some dietary requirements, it can be a little bit difficult for you to find a Ryokan which is suitable. They exist, and we're going to be staying in one which is going to serve vegetarian food for Liam this time, but it can be tough. On the much cheaper end when it comes to hotels are capsule hotels and hostels. Hostels is very much like the type of thing that we would see in Europe, Australia and in America. They tend to be rooms which you share with other travelers. They may have bunk beds, and they're extremely reasonably priced. Oh, there's also shared bathrooms as well, don't forget about that. It's obviously hostels tend to have shared bathrooms. The thing I love about Japan is that because the cleanliness level and the politeness level is so high there, I tend to find that the hostels are absolutely beautiful. They're some of the highest rated hotels in Japan are hostels. It's really quite strange. So if you're wondering whether to do it cheaper this time and try it out, go ahead. It will be a good experience. They tend to do very well there. Your other option is of course the capsule hotel. Capsule hotels are buildings which are filled with these really interesting capsules. There's not really any other way to describe them. They are a room, but they're not high enough for you to stand in. You literally can lie down in there and sleep. It's just a mattress with a pillow and a few other amenities. Some of them come with TVs and this kind of thing. They're really, really cool and incredibly cheap, and every single one should have shower facilities and sort of somewhere for you to sit and do your work, or sit and have a drink with friends or something in the same building as them as well. I think the most popular one at the moment is one called 9 Hours. I've not stayed there, but people I know have really quite liked it. The only issues I found with capsule hotels is obviously they're incredibly small, so it's perhaps something that you do for one night, but not somewhere that you'd want to stay for an extended amount of time. The other thing is for a long time, capsule hotels, or most capsule hotels, would have been men only. Now lots of capsule hotels are opening up to women as well, but you will be staying in a different floor. So if you're traveling with somebody who's of the opposite sex, then they will be staying on a different floor from you. So just remember that. There are some which don't do that, but they're incredibly hard to find. Most of the time you'll be on a different floor. Just a few others that are worthy of note. There are such a thing called temple stays or farm stays in Japan, depending if you're going to particular areas. If you visit Shirakawa-go, a beautiful town with very old style Japanese buildings, you can stay the night there in a farm stay and they will cook food for you. If you go to Koyasan, the same is true of the temples there. So you can stay in the temples. Food will be made for you. I think vegetarian food is quite common there because it tends to be what they eat within the temples, and they're apparently amazing experiences. So they're very contextual though, so they're very, it's not like I can go to Tokyo and say I want to do a farm stay or a temple stay. You might be able to find it, but they're usually very contextual to the places that you're visiting if you're going to those particular areas. Some of you in your research may have also heard about love hotels and manga cafes. Love hotels are places which have been built to allow couples to have some nice alone time together for a certain number of hours. The theory behind them is that in Japan, lots of people live with their parents for a very long amount of time, or multiple generations will live in one household, and so if you wish to get out with your partner and have some alone time, you can make use of a love hotel. You can stay there overnight if you wish, and people do it, and they are reasonably priced, but that is the context of a love hotel. You can make up your own mind about that. The other thing is a manga cafe. Manga cafes are places which are open 24 hours, which you have a lot of manga, magazines, video games, computers set up for people to play computers, games and read manga for a whole night. Actually, that sounds awesome. People have stayed there overnight. It tends to be your last resort if you really cannot find anywhere else to stay. I wouldn't recommend it because I feel like you might be quite uncomfortable the next day, but if you wanted a real different experience, then that is something that you could do. Finally, hotels at Disney. This is the last one. There are a number of hotels at Disney. Some are run by some external companies like the Hilton, which seems to be everybody's favorite, and then the Disney hotels. Oddly, I've never stayed in any of the Disney hotels in Tokyo. I prefer to stay in Tokyo and commute out to Disney, but the one that seems to be on the top of everybody's list is the Hotel Miracosta, because it has a view over the Mediterranean harbour area of Tokyo Disney Sea, which is absolutely beautiful. One thing I will say about the Tokyo Disney hotels though is that they are super pricey. I believe you can book them something like 3 or 6 months before, you know, you're going on your trip, and it is advised that you book as early as possible to get a reasonably priced room, because they can rack up. They can get super expensive. Beautiful, but expensive. Airbnb used to be a great option for when we visited Japan. I've stayed in multiple Airbnb apartments in Tokyo and Osaka, and they've all been amazing. Unfortunately, there's been a few rules set by the Japanese government over the last few years, which has made it quite difficult for a number of people to host Airbnbs in their apartments. And now I have found that most Airbnb apartments are run by larger companies, almost like they're run by like a hotel. So they are still available, you can still find them. I'm not staying in them as much as I did previously. I felt like you really got that Japanese experience when sort of normal people which had some extra space or owned another apartment could lease it out via Airbnb, and now it's not quite the same. So check out them anyway, but yeah, for me, I'm not doing it, not right now. Right, now we know what types of accommodation are available to us. Let's have a little bit of a think about where we would like to stay, sort of in those places that we're going to. I tend to, when I visit Japan, like to stay quite close to a city or town centre, or at least somewhere that has lots of stuff going on. This just makes it easier for us to get breakfast in the morning, or get food in the evening, or just to take a wander around to do something else later on in the day. The easiest way that I have found to do this is to have a look at Google Maps. When you look at Google Maps and you zoom right in, eventually certain areas around a city will start to look orange. Those orange places are sort of public areas containing shops and restaurants. So if my hotel is near to those or within that area, I know that there are going to be shops and restaurants around where my hotel is, which is perfect. The other landmark that I like to stay quite close to is a station, and this is particularly important if you are using a city as a base. I often use Kyoto as a base to travel to other places around that area, and so staying by the station in Kyoto is an absolute must for us. In Tokyo, I'm generally happy as long as I'm about 10 minutes away from a metro line. I've stayed a couple of times in CITADINES in Shinjuku, and that's about 10 minutes away from Shinjuku Gyoenmai metro station, which is absolutely perfect for getting around the city. So if you're like me and you like to be close to shops and restaurants and near the station, they're your kind of general rules for picking hotels or accommodation. Obviously, if you prefer somewhere quieter, then maybe don't pick a hotel that's in the orange area on Google Maps and choose one a little bit further out than the city centre. But people like me, those are your rules. City centre areas and by a station. There are a few places that I definitely look at staying as top priorities when I visit certain areas of Japan, and in Tokyo those would be Shibuya, Harajuku, Shinjuku. My favourite areas of Tokyo tend to be on the west side. I love that sort of whole Shinjuku, Shibuya area, and anywhere along that stretch is kind of my favourite places to be staying. If you are going to be going to Tokyo Disney though, you may want to consider staying somewhere like Kyobashi or Ginza, which is on the other side. These are also amazing places to see, loads of shops and restaurants around, beautiful areas, and you can get to Tokyo Station super easy and then get on a train out to Tokyo Disney, which will take you about 25 minutes. I've already said in Kyoto my favourite place to stay would be by the station, because you could use it to go to anywhere. I know a few other people have liked to stay around the Gion area because that's where more shops and restaurants tend to be, although Kyoto Station is perfect if you like ramen or loads of different food actually, because the department store which sits on top of it has loads of stuff. In Osaka, the favourite places to stay are Namba, because there's a large shopping area there. I think they have a huge shopping centre there right in Namba, and Dotonbori. Dotonbori is going to be recognisable to everyone because if you've seen any pictures of the Osaka lights, it's usually around Dotonbori, and I have a lovely hotel which I love to stay in Osaka called Cross Hotel, and it's very, very close to there, and if they have reasonable prices, that's the one I'll always stay in if I head to Osaka. For everywhere else, check Google Maps. That's what I did for this trip that I have upcoming. Always look for where the train station is and where those shops or restaurants are, and plan accordingly to your taste, and you'll find a good place. Let's talk about finding hotels. Now, there is a couple of ways to go about this, and I know some people prefer Trivago, but I'm perhaps a little bit old school, and I still use TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is my favourite site for finding hotels in particular areas that I am travelling. What I'll do is I'll put in the location that I'm going to and the dates that I'm travelling, and then order the hotels by Traveller Ranked. And the reason why I like to see them in Traveller Ranked is I like to see exactly what the public says. TripAdvisor do offer their own recommendations. I prefer to see what the public says. So after that, I tend to run down the list and see if I notice any of my favourite hotel chains, or look out for the ones which are most within my price range. So the ones that are sort of the price ranges that I'm looking at, I will click on those and open those up and then start to do a little bit further investigation. I will find them on Google Maps. This helps me to confirm the rating, because Google Maps also has its own rating for those particular hotels, and then also I can see from Google Maps whether the hotel is by any shops and restaurants and how close it is to the station. After finding the hotel that I want, I will will then book it, and I tend to look at what the recommendations are on TripAdvisor as to which site to book on, and then I will click one of those. I was going to say that I would click the cheapest one, but that's actually not true. I'm a little bit fearful about lots of websites, so I have the websites that I trust, and the ones that I will always book through will be booking.com and Expedia. So if those are reasonably priced, I tend to book through those first. Sometimes I find that booking.com or Expedia don't have rooms available in the hotels of my choice, and this could be for a number of reasons. The most obvious one is the hotel is full, and perhaps a little bit more likely is that booking.com and Expedia just don't have loads of rooms from that hotel to sell on. Or if you're booking very, very far in advance, the rooms might not be available to book yet. Lots of Japanese hotels don't allow bookings on their hotel rooms until about 3 months before the date that you're going to be traveling there. So if you find a hotel and you love it, but there are no rooms available, and you're more than 3 months out, perhaps wait a little bit, because it's likely that the rooms will become available as you get closer to the trip. But still try and book early, especially if you're traveling in cherry blossom season or the autumn leaf changing season, because as soon as those rooms are available, whoop, they'll go. Sometimes I get really stuck and there are no rooms available in the hotels that I want on any of the websites that I'll usually go to. So what I do in those cases is a couple of things. First of all, I will try the hotel's own website and fill in the reservation form on their website. This will tell me whether a room is actually available or not. If a room is available, I tend to find the hotel website prices are quite high, so I'll go to 2 websites to try and see if I can actually find the rooms, and they are Japan I Can and Rakuten. These 2 websites I have found in most cases will still have rooms available when booking.com and Expedia won't. So booking.com and Expedia, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if they have a smaller number of rooms or what, but in the cases that I can't find the rooms on there, usually I can find rooms available on Japan I Can and Rakuten, and they usually have some quite good policies like cancellation times and only paying when you stay at the property. So I really rate those 2 websites. I have an existing sort of, you know, booking relationship with booking.com and Expedia, so I tend to use them, but Japan I Can and Rakuten are great websites and really, really good for when you're in a bind. I mentioned earlier about cancellation policies, and they really are incredibly generous in Japan. When we used to live there and would travel out to other cities, sometimes I would book a hotel without any credit card details, with full refund cancellation policy all the way up until the day before going to the hotel. It was incredible. Nowadays I find that it's very easy for you to book a full refund cancellation policy booking with booking.com, Expedia, and a bunch of other websites that you can book hotels with. On booking.com, I found that they have cheaper non-refundable rooms, but for our trip we want the flexibility, so I paid slightly more on my hotel rooms for a full refund cancellation policy, and I'm completely happy with that. A few general tips on hotels. Most hotels in Japan will offer breakfast. It tends to be buffet style, but usually there's not as many Western offerings. I think that is improving a little bit, but most of the time it's going to be very Japanese style breakfast, which by the way is delicious. You should definitely try fluffy hot rice with a cracked egg on it in the morning. It's so good. But if that's not up your street, you might want to consider saving yourself the money and actually getting breakfast from a convenience store or from a coffee shop or something like that, rather than getting breakfast in your hotel every single day. I found use of English in hotels to be a little bit hit and miss. In Tokyo it's usually been fine. There's usually been somebody there who can speak English and help us with anything that we've needed. In other cities, hit and miss. Sometimes we're lucky, other times not so much. Just make sure that you have your Google Translate handy on your phone, and make sure you have a printout of your hotel reservation. In fact, I never print out my hotel reservation. I just have it on my phone somewhere, and it's always been completely fine. But just be a little bit prepared if you're going outside of some major cities. It may be a little bit tough, but you will always be okay. So just don't worry, be brave. There is no tipping culture in Japan, not for restaurants, not for hotel staff, concierges or anything like that. So if you're used to leaving a tip in the room for maid staff or anyone, just don't. I know it's hard, like it is hard sometimes when they do such a good job and you want to, but they will just give it back to you. So maybe learn how to say thank you in Japanese, which is arigato gozaimasu, and then I think they'll be happy enough with that. One of the frustrating things about Japanese hotels I find though is the check-in time. The check-in time is usually a hard time around 2 or 3 p.m. I've seen 4 p.m. as well actually. And if you turn up at a hotel before that, they will almost always tell you that the room is not available and that if you do want to get into one early, you're going to have to pay for it. So if you want to, that's up to you, but I don't know, I've got a weird principle thing about that. I just won't do it. So check your check-in time. It's usually going to be around 3 p.m. and you usually will not be able to get into the hotel before that time. If you arrive very early in the morning, what you can do is take your luggage to the hotel, leave it with them, and then go out in and enjoy some of the day. Or if you don't want to trek all the way over to your hotel, you could do what Stephen and I did in one of our last trips and leave your luggage in a locker at a major train station, enjoy yourself around a city, and then go to the hotel when check-in opens. Right, finally, I want to leave you with some of my favorite hotel chains as a recommendation to you if you are traveling to Japan. My favorite hotel chain ever is Dormy Inn. It's an interesting one because it's a business hotel, so incredibly clean and convenient rooms. I've always found the decor is a little bit interesting. They seem to have a thing with this really odd muddy brown colour, which seems to exist in a lot of their hotels. So I think on first sight it might be a bit like, this is interesting. But it's a really lovely hotel chain. They do free ramen noodles at 9 p.m. every evenings in most of the Dormy Inns, and most of them also have a bathhouse, which is the major reason why we stay there. They tend to have a bathhouse on their top floors, so you can enjoy a lovely bath after a really hard day of sightseeing and walking around. A little bit higher end than Dormy Inn is Mitsui Garden. It's also a business hotel and usually has a bathhouse too, but it tends to be a lot more modern in decor, but it is a little bit pricier than Dormy Inn. But if I find a Mitsui Garden and it is cheap and available, then I will go for it. One of my favorite ones is in Nagoya, and from the Mitsui Garden Hotel in Nagoya you can have a perfect view of Nagoya Castle. It's really, really cool. If you're looking for an apart hotel, something with a kitchenette, and this might be because you have dietary requirements and want to make sure that you can eat, then my favourite chain is CITADINES. They do have that tiny kitchenette in their rooms. It's extremely convenient, and in Tokyo I believe there's 2 in Shinjuku, and they're in a couple of other Japanese cities as well. Finally, another favourite business hotel is Cross Hotel, and they only have a few Cross hotels in Japan, but they are absolutely gorgeous. They're very, very hipster style of hotels. They're quite dark and really quite moody and cool, and the one in Hokkaido in Sapporo has an onsen at the top of it. If you're going to go to Sapporo, that is my top recommendation. It's a beautiful hotel in a really, really convenient area. So that's it. I think we covered everything to do with finding and booking hotels in Japan. This is actually the last of our Japan trip planning video. So if you have any comments or questions, please drop them in the comments below. I may make some more Japan trip planning videos. There is a few more that I had ideas for as we were creating this series, and I would love to do those, but my trip to Japan is actually coming up in a couple of days, so we might need to wait until that trip is over for us to continue with some extra bonus videos to the series. So for now, thank you so much. I hope you had an amazing December. Happy New Year for 2020, and I hope to see you all back on the channel another time soon. Thank you everyone. I'll see you soon. Bye.